All right, hello class. Um, in anticipation of me being out today, I wanted to lead you through the last 3 pages of part 2 and work with you on that. And so we'll be starting on page 46 in the Black Book. It's right after that really long philosophical part that Marlowe's going over. That's kind of a flash forward. We learn a little bit more about Kurtz and his fiance, and then the helmsman's death. And we're at the part where the helmsman has just been thrown overboard by Marlowe. And everyone's kind of murmuring about it. So that's where we are, and let's get started.
Alone should have him. He had been a very second-rate helmsman while alive, but now he was dead. He might have become a first-class temptation, and possibly caused some startling trouble. Besides, I was anxious to take the wheel. The man in pink pajamas showed himself a hopeless duffer at the business.
So after this whole long section, again, Marlowe's drawn back to the boat and back to the business at hand. And it's like, these sections are happening, but probably in a span of 30 seconds, all of his thoughts in the time. And really, he's asked the guy in the pink pajamas to take the wheel for a few minutes, and he had all of those thoughts. And then now, of course, he's back to the business at hand.
This I did directly the simple funeral was over. We were going half speed, keeping right in the middle of the stream, and I listened to the talk about me. They had given up Kurtz. They had given up the station. Kurtz was dead, and the station had been burnt, and so on and so on. The red-haired pilgrim was beside himself with the thought that at least this poor Kurtz had been properly avenged. "Say, we must have made a glorious slaughter of them in the bush, huh? What do you think, say?" He positively danced, the bloodthirsty little gingery beggar.
Interesting description of him, a bloodthirsty gingery beggar. But this man's suggesting that at least they avenged Kurtz by killing all those savages. Marlowe has a different and very unpopular viewpoint on the battle they just fought.
And he had nearly fainted when he saw the wounded man. And I could not help saying, "You made a glorious lot of smoke anyhow." I had seen from the way the tops of the bushes rustled and flew that almost all the shots had gone too high. You can't hit anything unless you take aim and fire from the shoulder. But these chaps fired from the hip, with their eyes shut. The retreat, I maintained, and I was right, was caused by the screeching of the steam whistle. Upon this, they forgot Kurtz, and began to howl at me with indignant protests.
So the people on the boat get mad whenever, Marlowe points out the reality of the situation was that they weren't, fighting really well, and that really it was the steam whistle that caused the natives to scatter.
The manager stood by the wheel murmuring confidentially about the necessity of getting well away down the river before dark at all events, when I saw in the distance a clearing on the riverside and the outlines of some sort of building. "What's this?" I asked. He clapped his hands in wonder. "The station!" he cried. I edged in at once, still going half speed. Through my glasses, I saw the slope of a hill interspersed with rare trees and perfectly free from undergrowth. A long, decaying building on the summit was half buried in the high grass. The large holes in the peaked roof gaped black from afar. The jungle in the woods made a background. There was no enclosure or fence of any kind, but there had been one apparently, for near the house, half a dozen slim posts remained in a row, roughly trimmed, and with their upper ends ornamented with round, carved balls.
You'll understand this in the final section, but I just wanted to point out to you right now so you get an idea of the picture of the station. First of all, you can tell that it's in a state of decay, and really when you think about what they were coming there for, when they said they were going to build roads and schools and infrastructure, you can definitely tell that that's not happening. But also, the round balls on the fence post are heads, and you'll find out that in the third section.
The rails, or whatever there had been between, had disappeared. Of course, the forests surrounded all that. The riverbank was clear, and on the water side I saw a white man under a hat like a cartwheel beckoning persistently with his whole arm. Examining the edge of the forest above and below, I was almost certain I could see movements, human forms gliding here and there. I steamed past prudently, then stopped the engines and let her drift down. The man on the shore began to shout, urging us to land. "We've been attacked!" screamed the manager. I know, it's all right," yelled back the other.
Talk about ironic answers. When you say, "we've been attacked," you don't want someone to say, "I know. Everything's fine. It's cool. No big deal." It seems kind of weird that he would say that. And remember that this whole thing is a mystery, and as each little section unfolds, we should be building suspense, and we should be, wondering about, well, what's that about, or what's happening next?
As cheerful as you please. Come along. It's all right. I'm glad. His aspect reminded me of something I had seen, something funny I'd seen somewhere. As I maneuvered to get alongside, I was asking myself, what does this fellow look like? Suddenly I got it. He looked like a harlequin.
Okay, so this is the half cast, the one that Marlowe sent on with the ivory that one time, the one that the manager and his uncle called the scoundrel. This is him. He's a white man who's been living here with Kurtz. Some people call him the Russian. You'll see in some summaries of Heart of Darkness. Some people call him the Harlequin. They're the same. He looks like a Harlequin because of the way he's dressed. And we're about to go into that description. But he is from Russian descent, and so that's why they call him the Russian too. But he's been living there with Kurtz, and you're going to get to hear more of his background in these last few pages.
His clothes had been made of some stuff that was brown Holland, probably. But it was covered with patches all over, with bright patches, blue, red, and yellow, patches on the back, patches on the front, patches on the elbows, on knees, colored binding around his jacket, scarlet edging at the bottom of his trousers, and the sunshine made him look extremely gay and wonderfully neat withal, because you could see how beautifully all this patching had been done. A beardless, boyish face, very fair, no features to speak of, nose peeling, little blue eyes, smiles and frowns chasing each other over that open countenance like sunshine and shadow on a windswept plain.
That's such an interesting simile to say that he was going from smiling to frowning just as quick as sunshine and shadow on a windswept plain. It's like it's constantly changing his mood or his face and what emotion that he's portraying.
"Look out, Captain," he cried. "There's a snag lodged in here last night." "What? Another snag?" I confess I swore shamefully. I had nearly holed my cripple to finish off that charming trip. The harlequin on the bank turned his little pug nose up to me. "You English?" he asked, all smiles. "Are you?" I shouted from the wheel. The smiles vanished, and he shook his head as if sorry for my disappointment. Then he brightened up. "Never mind," he cried encouragingly. "Are we in time?" I asked. "He's up there," he replied with a toss of his head up the hill, and becoming gloomy all of a sudden. His face was like the autumn sky, overcast one moment and bright the next.
Another simile of that same idea in his changing mood.
When the manager, escorted by the pilgrims, all of them armed to the teeth, had gone to the house, this chap came on board. "I say I don't like this. These natives are in the bush," I said. He assured me earnestly it was all right. "They are simple people," he added. "Well, I'm glad you came. It took me all my time to keep them off." "But you said it was all right," I cried. "Oh, they meant no harm," he said. And as I stared, he corrected himself. "Not exactly."
It seems like the Russians holding something back, not really giving us all the truth, especially about the natives. His responses seem vague and also up for interpretation.
Then vivaciously, "My faith, your pilot house wants a clean-up."
Because that's where the helmsman died.
In the next breath, he advised me to keep enough steam on the boiler to blow the whistle in case of any trouble. "One good screech will do more for you than all your rifles. They are simple people," he repeated. He rattled away at such a rate, he quite overwhelmed me. He seemed to be trying to make up for lots of silence, and actually hinted, laughing, that such was the case. "Don't you talk with Mr. Kurtz?" I said. "You don't talk with that man. You listen to him," he exclaimed with...
Interesting. So the guy hasn't talked to anyone in a long time and is chatting Marlowe's ear off. And when Marlowe's like, "Well, don't you talk to Kurtz?" He's like, "Nope, I listen to him."
Dear exultation. But now he waved his arm, and in a twinkling of an eye was in the uttermost depths of despondency. In a moment he came up again with a jump, possessed himself of both my hands, shook them continuously while he gabbled. "Brother sailor, honor, pleasure, delight, introduce myself. Russian, son of an archpriest, government of Tambov. What? Tobacco, English tobacco, the excellent English tobacco. Now that's brotherly. Smoke? Where's a sailor that does not smoke?"
Yeah, he's overwhelming to everyone else, too. He's going on, and we're catching, snippets of that conversation.
The pipe soothed him, and gradually I made out he had run away from school, had gone to sea in a Russian ship, ran away again, served some time in English ships, was now reconciled with the archpriest. He had made a point of that.
So he is Russian descent, but he can speak English, especially because of his time on English ships.
But when one is young, one must see things, gather experience, ideas, enlarge the mind. "Here?" I interrupted. "You can never tell. Here I met Mr. Kurtz," he said, youthfully solemn and reproachful. I held my tongue after that. It appears he had persuaded a Dutch trading house on the coast to fit him out with stores and goods, and had started for the interior with a light heart and no more idea of what would happen to him than a baby.
Interesting, because that parallels Marlowe's experience exactly. Heading out for adventure. Of course, Marlowe didn't go out alone. He signed up for a job with a company, but this Russian went out on his own and had no idea what was going to be out there.
He had been wandering about that river for nearly 2 years alone, cut off from everybody and everything. "I'm not so young as I look. I am 25, he said. "At first, old Van Schouten would tell me to go to the devil," he narrated with keen enjoyment, "but I stuck to him, and talked, till at last he got afraid I would talk the hind leg off his favorite dog, so he gave me some cheap things and a few guns. He told me he hoped he would never see my face again. Good old Dutchman, Van Schouten. I've sent him one small lot of ivory a year ago, so that he can't call me a little thief when I get back. I hope he got it. And for the rest, I don't care. I had some wood stacked for you. That was my old house, did you see?"
So referring back to the house that had the wood and the ominous note about approaching cautiously, that was from the Russian here.
I gave him Towson's book. He made as though he would kiss me, but restrained himself. "The only book I had left. I thought I had lost it," he said, looking at it ecstatically. "So many accidents happen to a man going about alone, Canoes get upset sometimes, and sometimes you've got to clear out so quick when people get angry." He thumbed the pages. "You made notes in Russian?" I asked. He nodded. "I thought they were written in cipher," I said.
So what he thought was secret code was actually Russian. Again, emphasizing this point in the book of appearance versus reality, and especially in these last few lines, the appearance of what happened versus the reality of what happened. Here's the truth.
He laughed, then became serious. "I had lots of trouble to keep these people off," he said. "Did they want to kill you?" I asked. "Oh, no," he cried, and checked himself. "Why did they attack us?" I pursued. He hesitated, then said shamefacedly, "They don't want him to go." "Don't they?" I said curiously. He nodded a nod, full of mystery and wisdom. "I tell you," he cried, "this man has enlarged my mind." He opened his arms wide, staring at me with his little blue eyes that were perfectly round.
And that's the end of part two. And what an ominous and strange way to end it. You know, dun dun dun. The natives don't want him to go. That seems completely opposite from every other station where they're enslaving and mistreating them. Of course, they would want the white people to go. So, what's going on with Kurtz? And that's what's next in part three.